All right, good morning everybody. I hope everyone is doing well. Welcome to today's presentation. This is creating simple dashboards using out-of-the-box web parts. So happy you guys could join us. Just a couple of logistics. I will be doing a PowerPoint presentation as well as a demo. We have a chat window and a questions box. So if you guys have any questions at all, please feel free to put them in the questions window and I will answer them just as quickly as I can as we're going through the presentation. So let's go ahead and get started today. A little bit about myself. My name is Jennifer Ann Mason. I am a SharePoint Office Servers and Services MVP. I've been doing SharePoint for a very long time, many years now, and I like to tell people that I am allergic to syntax and semicolons. So I really focus on everything you can do with SharePoint without having to do code. And so this session particularly that we're going to do is all about building simple dashboards and just making the simple great inside of SharePoint. So I've got my Twitter handle there. You guys can reach out to me on Twitter as well as my blog where I have lots of examples, many examples from the stuff we're going to cover today on my blog so you can dive in and get some additional information. All right, so today we are going to talk about using simple dashboards. And so when I say a simple dashboard inside of SharePoint, I'm really meaning things like a SharePoint list connected together. And so it's going to be using SharePoint content and the content that's there to tell a story. And what do I mean by telling a story? It really is about the data and the context that you're trying to get people so that they can, be driven to action. And so we have no code solutions. That means no syntax, no semicolons. And we're going back to the simple inside of SharePoint. So there'll be a lot of stuff that we cover in this session that is very much beginning points of SharePoint. And it may not apply to every dashboard you're looking at doing, but it's a great reminder of some of the basics inside of SharePoint and some of the really powerful things that you can do. All right, and we're going to talk about the real world, and we're going to talk about our goals with building dashboards. Dashboards is one of those fun words that whenever you go into a session and people are like, I'd really like to build dashboards. When you start talking to them, it's, well, what do you mean by you'd like to build a dashboard? What are all the components? What are all of the pieces? And you'll find that they need everything from a simple Excel file all the way down to very advanced Power BI dashboards. And so there's a whole concept of dashboarding that it's like this mythical thing that's out there and people need it. But it can mean so many different things. And so the scenario that we're going to talk about today is this idea of data plus context will drive people to action. And so what we want to do is give them the right data with the right contextual boundaries around it so we can drive them to action. And so an example of that, let's say that we have a task list. Well, what's the data? The data is the task. Well, what's the context? Maybe what tasks are due today, maybe what tasks are late. Tasks are assigned to me, tasks are assigned to my team. And what's the overall action we're trying to drive them to? Most likely to finish their tasks or to review something or something along those lines. And so what I find when I start working with people and they tell me that they need a dashboard, that many times they can give me two of these three components. So if we sit and we go to a whiteboard and we say, okay guys, what data are you working with and what action do you need? They're able to, really map out in terms of requirements two of the three. But maybe they can't get that third. But by thinking about it this way, once we have the two in place, we can start to think of that third one. So if we know, we need people to do their task. They're not doing their task. They're not updating their task. They're not providing additional details. There's things we need them to do. Well, in that scenario, we have the data and we have the action that they need to do. So now we just have to help define that context. And so by doing this and looking at these projects this way, we're able to really get a good grasp of what we're trying to do and what we need our dashboards to reflect to our users. Okay, so just a couple of quick reminders as we're going into this. Whatever story you're going to be delivering to your organization is going to be pretty unique. Your organization has needs and cultures and requirements that are different than any other organization, and so I can show you all day long how to use SharePoint, but there's that translation piece of how you put that back to your organization and how you make that really stick. And so just a reminder that I'm going to show you guys some things here that may or may not apply to your organization. And really what's going to be right for you is it depends. So there may be times that I show something and you're like, well, Jen, that is really great, but that won't work inside of my organization. And that's okay because it might not. But I show you these features just so you kind of understand and know what you can do, and then can hopefully take them and apply them to the specific things that work inside of your organization. And then the other thing is that, you know, there's many options, and you've heard the phrase, we're going to crawl, walk, and then run, and this is one of those scenarios. And so these are very simple dashboards inside of SharePoint just using SharePoint data. Well, you may get to a point where you want to integrate with other data. You may get to a point where you want to use Power BI. You want to do advanced reporting. And some of those more advanced features are going to be there for you to use. And so this is just an example in the crawl phases of what we can do. So really it's, you know, the sky's the limit. You can do so many different things, and we're going to just cover some of the basics here today. All right, and just a reminder, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the questions or the chat window as we're going through. All right, so we're going to go through now and show a couple of different dashboard examples. I have 3 that we're going to show. We have a document dashboard, we have a task dashboard, and then we have finally a project dashboard. So I'm going to switch over now to my demo, and I'm going to show these different dashboards for you. All right, so the first one we're going to look at is a task dashboard. All right, so as that loads up here right now, we see that we have got a page that's got a grid for us. It's got a timeline letting us know when different tasks are being worked on. We have a collection of active tasks. So these are my active tasks. These are my tasks that I'm working on. We have all tasks grouped by phase. So you see this is the context that we're able to give people. The requirements phase, I can expand here and see the design phase. We can see with our tasks, something that SharePoint does for us in the latest release, is that notice my due date is very late. These tasks are very late and it's showing up as red. We also see the friendly dates. And this is where they're making things nice and friendly for us and showing us different things. We have our overdue tasks, so these are all of the tasks that are due, that are late, haven't been done yet, and tasks due this week. And so for each one of these, I've got a different set of commands I can do with it. So for instance, I can mark them as complete. For here, I can click on edit, and it's going to let me open up that task. And you know, maybe I'm going to make the due date for this one, let's make it 12/3/2016. I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now when I go back to my page, you'll notice that the task is now due here, and I've got that friendly date again where it's saying Saturday. And so we're seeing that wherever whatever data is in these tasks, whatever metadata is set on these tasks, is going to determine where they show up on the page. And so this is the alternative to having a group of users come in, and if I was on a SharePoint site and I needed to see my tasks, I would come down here to Site Contents, and I would find my project's task list. So I'm going to come down here. I have my project's task list. So you can see that the difference between viewing all of the tasks in one single list, I'm getting the same data when I'm viewing it this way, but the context is much different. Come back over here and I'll show you side by side. The context of the task list is much different viewed in a single page dashboard where I'm able to see all of my data at one time clearly put together versus seeing a single list coming down. And it makes a very big visual difference when we're going through and seeing that. And so what we're going to do through the remainder of this session is to show you how you can build out those dashboards. But going back, we're going to look at some of the other dashboards that we have here. Let's get back. Okay. The other dashboards we're going to look at is a document dashboard. Now, this is going to be a dashboard that has the same concept as the task dashboard, except for the data that's being shown is data from a documents list. So now here you have one single documents list put on the page many different times to give you different context of what is being displayed. So you have the different context here, and you have everything that you need to show the data and to really make it meaningful for your users. And then the last one we're going to show is a combination of the different components of a project list, a task list, and a document library mixed together. So here on this page that we have, you're able to actually select a project, and it's going to filter and show you the task associated with that project, the documents associated with that project, and a summary of that project. So depending on which one I pick, the data is going to change to show me the information that is there for that one. So we see when I picked project 5, I have a task associated with it, I have documents, and I have a project summary. So all of that information is there. It gives your users the ability to quickly and easily go in and see data in a very, very meaningful way. All right, so I'm going to go back to our presentation here. Okay, and so how we do this is by working with list and views. So all of the lists that we talked about, we had a task list, and we set different views, and then once we have those different views in place, we use web parts to pull things together. All right, so really here are the steps that we're going to go through when we build out these dashboards. So we're going to have our list. We're going to create list associations and lookup columns if we have different lists that need to go together. So when we get into the project dashboard example, we have a need for our content to be referencing different lists. So we have a list of projects, and then we have a list of tasks, and we have a list of documents. And so if we need them to reference each other, we'll use a lookup column. We're going to create custom views, we're going to create a page, and then we're going to put the web parts on the page. All right, so the first one we're going to start to look at is the task dashboard. So I want to, again, go back to my site, and I'm going to go into my projects list. And what we want to do here is we want to start to dissect some of the different components of the list so we can work through those different pieces. The first thing that I want to talk about is the timeline that's available inside of SharePoint Online and SharePoint 2013 and higher. And so what this is if I click on here, I can remove items from the timeline if it's already on the timeline. Task 4 is up there. It looks like Task 1, Task 7, and Task 4 are up there. So if I come over here to Task 6, I can say add it to my timeline. And it is going to come up here, and it's going to add it to my timeline and make it something that shows up on the timeline. This is something that comes out of the box with all SharePoint task lists. Once I click on it, I have options to change how it's done. So I can say, you know, I really want to display this as a call-out. And now it's going to be displayed here as a call-out instead of being displayed on the timeline. I can also do things over here around colors if I wanted to make it you know, really change the colors or different things like that. I can do that. I can also come back and say make it as a bar, and then with that I can come over and again pick different colors and have it set up for me. I'm able to come and drag and drop things around if I need it to be displayed differently. These are all things that I can easily do within my task list. Now this creates a really great experience. What a lot of people will do is they will put their milestones on the timeline, and so they'll put all of their milestones on the timeline and then leave all their individual tasks there, and then that's a great way that you can display that on a SharePoint site. And then what you can do is on your page you can pick and choose with each web part if the timeline is going to be displayed or not, which allows us to put the timeline very simply and easily on a page. Okay. Now when I come down here to my task, I see that I just have a single view, and one of the things I want to be able to do is create multiple views, because if I create different views I'm able to then use those web parts in my views on the page. And so for my task example, we had things overdue task, and we had different things like that. And so we have a task list up here. If I go to list, I can see a lot of the views that exist within the site. So some of these are you know, created for you with, you know, they come out of the box with SharePoint. So my task, I can come over here and look, and I see, okay, now I have a different view of the same data. I can come over here and go up here and say, okay, well, let's view it by project phases. Now I can come over here and I see, okay, well now I'm grouping them together based on phases. So these are all different views that exist for the list and are available for us as we go through. So how you create these different views is you come over here to List and you go to List Settings, and at the bottom of the page you will see all of the views that exist for your list. Now these views are here. Some of them I created, some of them come out of the box by default. But if you click on any one of these, you're going to get to a page that's going to let you edit the view. And this is where you will go through and you will create different views for the list, and you will edit them based on the criteria that you want. So a lot of people have done some of the basics with lists, and so what I want to do now is go through some of those basics, but then also show you some of the other features inside of lists. So we have all of our columns here, and then we have the position that they are within the columns. So you can pick and choose what columns are displayed and what order you want to put them in. I'm going to leave just the default for right now. We can pick and choose how we want to sort them. We can sort them A to Z, Z to A, and these are all of the columns that can be sorted by. If you don't see the column you want to sort by in this list, it means for whatever reason the list is not, or the list column is not supported for the sorting functionality. So any columns that are available for sorting will show in this drop down here. Filtering, same thing, any columns that are available for filtering, you can come over here and say, I want to, look and say everything that's assigned to me. So there's two different filterings that we can use that are very, very powerful. The first one is me inside of the braces, or it's really the square bracket. So it's me, so assigned to equals me. And if I do that, then what's going to happen is whoever logs into the site, they're going to be the me. So this is going to pull up and show only tasks assigned to me. If Karen opened the site, it would only show task assigned to Karen. So whoever is the current user is equal to the me filter. So anywhere you have a person field and you want to filter it to the current user, that's how you would do it using the me filter. All right. And remember, if you have any questions, go ahead and ask them in the chat window over there. Okay. The other filter that is very, very powerful is the today filter. So today, let's see if we wanted to say due date is equal to, and I put in the same, I put today, I would come over here and say okay. And then the list is going to filter and show me any task that are due today. Well, there's nothing in my list. So what I'm going to do is come over here to the completed task list, and I'm going to take one of these tasks and edit it, and then go back to that list and show you guys how it updates. I'm going to change that. And I'm going to change the due date to today. So now when I go back to my all task view, which is the one that we've been making changes to, you see that that task is now displayed. And so when you go on there and you have it equal to today, it's going to show you anything that is due on the date that's there. Today is also a mathematical operator, so with that you can do show me all tasks that are due today plus 7, or show me all tasks that are due today minus 7, which shows you all tasks that are due in the last week or all tasks that are due in the next week. And so you can use mathematical operations on this list view as well, and on this column filter, so that you can get the right list of tasks there. And on one of our web parts, we actually have that task due in the next week. So that's where you can come in and say, today plus 7. So is equal to, this is where you'd go in and say is equal to today or less than today plus 7. And so it's greater than, let's see, it's greater than today. And oops. And let's say due date again, due date is less than today plus 7. Okay. And this is going to pull in then any task that we have that are due within that criteria. So that's how you would go ahead and do that. And on our task dashboard that we have, I think over here, if I come back and show you the task dashboard, that is how we have, that's how we have it set up here to show you the tasks that are due this week. So this web part is set up to do that. So it's got task 1 and task 10 there. So that's using that same criteria there to set that up. And so that's how you would work with that view to get the pieces of data that you're looking for. All right, we are going to come back over here to the list now, and we are going to go in and go back and modify that view again. And I'm going to go ahead and take all of my filters off. So we show the whole list, and I want to show some things with group by. We can come over here and say, how do we want to do it? So with ours, we were grouping by phase or even by project. We can go in and say, okay, show me everything by project. Is it expanded, collapsed? And we can do 2 levels of grouping. So if I want to show it by maybe project and then maybe due date. I'm going to show it by those. I'm going to say OK. I've got my first level of grouping, and then as I expand it, I have my second level of grouping. Okay, so I see it's first grouped by my project, and then it's going to be grouped by my due date. And so I can see what different due dates I have. I can see what different projects I have. And so you have 2 levels of grouping. And so again, the idea is that we're going to create these different views so that then once we have all of the views that we want for a page, we can go drop them on a page and easily work with them. Okay, we're going to come back over here. Look at just a few more settings before we go and create a page and modify it. So I'm going to come over here to all tasks. I'm going to again get my group by gone, group by none, none. Okay. And the next piece I want to look at is styles. And so there's a couple of different styles that really provide an impactful way for you to display your data on a page. The first one that we have is going to be the boxed. So we're going to go look at boxed and boxed with no labels. And so this is a really great feature if you want to display just a couple of different items. I use this on the documents dashboard to display just, you know, the last item modified or the last pieces or something like that. And so if you see when you come down here, instead of displaying my tasks in a row and columns, I'm instead displaying them in nice little boxes. So I see that I've got all of these visual boxes that represent my task, and I can go all the way through the list. And so this is a very different way to look at content, but sometimes it's exactly what you need. So you want to use the box style for this. This was boxed and it has the labels, so all of the labels were here. If I went back and modified this view again and went with boxed no labels, it's simply going to remove those labels outside. So if I come over here to style, I'm going to say box no labels. Now I see that I just have the data there. So a lot of times what I'll see is people will combine this with the item limits. So if I come back over here and I go to list settings, one of the other settings in the list allows you to pick how you display the items in the list. So we can come down here and we can see item limits. And what if I want to display these in batches of 1? So I'm going to come over here and say OK. Now when I look at my list, I have a task, and I can simply go next and display the next one and the next one. And then I have next and previous, and I can go through the list this way. So there might be times where you really want to give people, you know, lots of impact about the one that they're looking at, and they want to show just some data about what we're trying to do, or just some data about one document or one task. This is a great way to display that data. Also, I'm sure many of you guys have worked with lists that get very wide, list with a lot of columns and so many things you can't display them just on one page. And so this is a great way to kind of take that data and display it in a meaningful way for your users. All right, we're going to go back in and look at a couple of other styles. Again, just a reminder, if you have any questions, any comments or anything like that, feel free to put them in the chat window or the questions, and I'll be sure to get them answered. Okay, so I'm going to go back to item limit and change it back to 200. Okay, and then I'm going to go back to styles and some of the other ones that we're going to look at. We're going to look first at shaded and preview, and then we'll go back and look at the newsletter. So shaded is going to be your simple list, and you're going to see that every other line is shaded based on color. So we see here that it just makes it visually appealing for everyone to see that every other line changes color. So it just makes it, if you need it to pop, you can do that. The colors that it uses to shade are going to be based on the theme you have set for the site. Okay, so we're going to go back in and we're going to look at preview. And then from there, we will look at my favorite, which is newsletter. Okay, so we're going to come down here for style, and we are going to go to preview pane. Something else to say about all these list settings that we're doing is these list settings apply to both list and document libraries. So everything that I'm showing you here will work in a task list, will work in a library, will work in really a custom list, will work anywhere that you use a list inside of SharePoint. So what this does is notice that I have a list over here, and then I have the data fields over here. As I hover over, I'm not clicking on anything, I'm simply scrolling over with my mouse. We see that you're seeing different values to the right. And so what we're able to do with the preview pane is we're able to see, just by hovering over it, we're able to quickly look through different pieces of data. This is a great thing to use if I want to know things about a conference room. Maybe I've got 10 conference rooms and I need a list that shows me what's available in each conference room. Maybe I have classes and I want to see, a list of classes and want to hover over it and see what the requirements are. Lots of different ways that you can use this preview pane, and it helps you get the context that you need. And this one is also very popular because it reduces the amount of clicking you need to do. So I'm able to quickly and easily see the data without having to click on anything, which is very important because most people do not like to click on things. Okay, so then the last one I want to show you guys, we're going to come down here, and the last one I want to show you guys is what's called the newsletter. Just like you'd imagine you're going to read news headlines, what this is going to do is it's going to take your list that you have displayed and it's going to show it in a newsletter type header format. And so we see here it's going to take some of my columns and put them across the top, give me my description text, and then give me my other columns on top of each other. And so what it's trying to do is provide a quick, easy visual way for you to get all of the data seen together. What's special about the newsletter column is that it all depends on the order of your fields of how it will be displayed. So I like to refer to this one as the magic column and the magic setting because depending on the order that I put my columns, I'm going to get a different view. So right now I've got my description as I think like the 5th or 6th. What will happen if I make my description the very first field? So I'm going to come back over here, I'm going to go to my list settings and I'm going to modify the view. All right, and so from here, the thing I'm going to do is description right now is number 7. Let's go ahead and make that the first one. So we're going to go over here and description is, actually let's make description number 2 and make the title or the task name number 1. Okay. Notice how it changed. I've got my task name here, I've got my description, and then below it I have all of my other fields. And so depending on the order of the fields is going to determine how it's displayed in the newsletter view. Likewise, I can come over here and I can modify it again. And you guys might notice that I keep going to list settings and modify. You can also, when you're within your view, you can always come over here and use the shortcuts. use the shortcuts to pull up what you're trying to do. I just have a habit of always going into list settings because as I'm teaching and explaining people how to use SharePoint, sometimes they get lost with the ribbon settings, but everything can always be found within list settings. So that's just a way that I tend to do it because I can always find what I'm looking for. But you can also use the ribbon to get to the same settings that are inside of that list settings page. So if I just come here and say modify view, it's a quicker entry point into that same spot that I've been going. Okay, so if I come over here and I say, well, you know, maybe I want description to be last now. So I'll come over here and say, okay. Notice how it again has changed how things are displayed. I have all my columns over, and then I have my description on the bottom. So depending on the fields that you're choosing to display, it's going to depend on how the newsletter style displays it. I find that this is one of the most underused features inside of SharePoint, but is also one of my favorite features inside of a SharePoint list view. Sometimes I even take this standard where I don't have a lot of text fields and I still put it in newsletter view just to give it a nice crisp look and feel with where we're going. And so what we've done so far is we just have had a SharePoint list and we have created several different views, and now we're going to go look at the page and dissect the page and show how we would take those web parts and put them on the page. Okay, so we're going to go back to the task list page here. Okay, here's my page, and I'm going to come over here and say edit so you guys can see what the page looks like. So I have my timeline, so this is going to be my web part that's on the page for the timeline. I have got some headers. If you guys noticed that I have nice headers above all of my web parts. Something that I like to do is when I put a web part on the page, I like to hide the Chrome and then I put in my own headers. I'll go grab icons or screenshots or images or something like that, make them all the same size and then use them on my page because I think it makes it more visually appealing for people to be able to see versus the web part Chrome. And I'll show you guys how I do that in just a minute. And then you'll notice that I have the same web parts on the page 4 different times using 4 different views. Okay? And so basically what I do is I simply create a page and I just add the web part 4 times. I write in my headers and I set the views the way that I want them. Okay? So we're going to come up here and I'm simply going to create a new page. I'm going to come over here to this so I can keep this one up so we can just see what it looks like for comparison. But I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say add a page. Give it a page. I'm going to say 12.1 demo. All right, and so this is my blank slate for the dashboard. And from here, I'm going to want to build out this page so it has all the content that I need. Once I have this page, I can save the URL to the page and give links to people of how they can access it and what they want to do. So for instance, on my home page, I use the promoted links web part to give everyone links to all of my dashboards. But what I can do is I want to come over here and decide the layout I want for my page. I do that by coming over here to text layout, and I have all of these different layouts that I can pick from. So I'll pick the one that makes the most sense for us. Maybe I'll come over here and do this one. And I'll come over here and I'll probably hit save and keep editing. And then I'm going to come and I'm going to say, you know, task dashboard. And I have that. And I might come over here and even pick some of the headings that I want to use with this. And what I'll try to do is just be consistent with whichever one I pick because I want to be able to reuse that same thing. So I may come over here and put overdue tasks. And I probably want to highlight it and make it heading 2. And I may come over here and put my tasks. Same thing. And then I may even want to do, at another point, do tasks that are due listed next week. So I'm going to go ahead and build this out. If I wanted to put images here, I could come over here and I could say insert, insert picture from computer. And then I might just go out and browse and find where I have got some images. So let me come over here And let's see what we've got. So, maybe I'll just pick some of these that I have. And when I do this, it's going to be putting this in the site assets library of the site, and then I can use it anywhere else on the site. So I might come over here and say, go ahead and put that in the middle. So then I have my insert image there, and I may come over here and say insert another picture from computer. And I just really want to make sure that the images are the same size. So I picked a 32 last time, so I'll pick a 32 again. Not really paying attention to if the image matches what I'm trying to do, but you guys kind of get the point of what I'm trying to do here. So again, I'd probably come over and make it for the middle. And again, I'm just looking for consistency. And this is a very powerful way to add some visual elements to your site to make users really get a great experience when they come and look at your site. So a lot of small things that you can do that make a big impact. Okay, so then once again, I'll just come up here to position and put middle. So now I have my site, and as I keep going through it, I'm probably going to say save and keep editing. All right, so now I'm going to come over here to after my dashboard, and this is where I want to insert a web part. So we're going to come over here to web part, and we have this. And we have got the timeline web part. So this is going to give us, from our list, we can come in here and we can add it. Now that I have it up here, save and keep editing. And then we can edit our web parts, and we can go in and pick what list are we wanting to use. So go through and verify the URL. Well, isn't that fun? So we'll go back to our site. And we'll go back in and we'll see if we can figure out what's going on with that. So we'll go to site contents. Okay, so my page is here. We will come back. There's a couple of different ways that you can do this. You've got the timeline. You have also got, let me go ahead and delete that. Okay, let's see what part. There's also a project summary web part that will get us the same thing, so let's see if that one will work for us. And the project summary one will pull in information from the task list as well as the calendar. So that's another way to get the same one. I'm going to have to go back and see if I can determine why that's happening that way. But we have this web part here. So if we go in and edit the web part, we're able to set properties about that web part. So I'm going to just go ahead and hit save here so I can show you a couple of different things. And you see that we've got, here's the name of my page. I could probably change that to task dashboard to make it look a little bit better. We have our title that's coming up here. And from here I can see our timeline as well as a detail about tasks that are coming up. So there's our timeline. We have that there. If I come back to the page now and I say edit the page, now I may want to add my overdue task. But maybe I noticed that that doesn't necessarily look right there, so I don't want to put that there. And I noticed that those were a little bit small, so maybe I want to come over here and just make these heading 1 to make them a little bit bigger. I'm going to go over here to where it says overdue task, and I'm going to say insert web part. And now I'm going to go find my list, so I'm going to go to project tasks and click on that and say add. Okay, and now I'm going to repeat and do the same thing here, and I'm going to say insert web part, and I'm going to go back and find project tasks, and I'm going to add that again. So notice now I just have 2 of the same web parts on the page. Looks a little crazy. There's a lot of data here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say save and keep editing. The reason I want to do that is because web parts like to have their they like to be saved to the page before you go in and edit them. If you don't do that, sometimes you're going to find that you'll be doing that and all of a sudden the web part will disappear off your page. And so the way to get around that is to just always save and keep editing. Okay, so I'm going to come over here now and I'm going to say edit the web part. And I'm going to come up to the view. And so those are overdue tasks. Now I'm going to come over here and say, okay, I want to show the late task view. So it's going to say, hey, you're switching views. Is that what you want to do? And you'll say, okay. And you'll say apply. And now we will notice that the view is different for our web part. Now we're just showing our late task. But you'll also notice the timeline is there. We most likely do not want the timeline if we're also showing the timeline up at the top. So we'll just simply show that there and we'll say apply. And now we'll see we have just our overdue task. And these are all of our tasks that are overdue displayed without the timeline. But we'll also notice that if we hit save and close, we still have this header here of project task. And so we probably don't want that to be displayed if we're doing our own header. So we'll come over here, we'll edit the page again. And then inside of this web part, we will come over and the piece that we want to change is what's known as the web part Chrome. So we'll come over here into Appearance and we'll go to Chrome Type, and instead of having the default, which is the title, we'll say None. And if we go to None and hit Apply, when we save the page, we will see that it displays, and it does not display that web part column. And so that is the way that you're able to hide that header and only show the data that you want to see. So if you wanted to do your own headers above web parts to kind of give some visual cues and different things like that, that's the way you would do that. So then we just simply keep repeating the same process. Come over and find my task. We're going to go into this web part. We're going to don't show the timeline, and under Appearance, we're going to set this to None. And then we are also going to come change this to My Tasks. All right, so when I save my page, you see how my dashboard is coming together very simply. So I'm able to kind of get some of the different pieces that I want to see. This is what's going to help give us that context and give us the ability to go in and say, well, what's the context that I want to show my users? You also notice that there's different pieces there. I'm seeing what tasks are overdue. I'm seeing information about them. But when it comes to my task, I'm given the ability to quickly close them out and complete them because of the view that I picked for my task. So the view and the style is going to help determine that contextual piece of it. So this is how we went ahead and did the dashboard for tasks. The dashboard for documents, and I'm not going to go completely into that one, but the dashboard for documents is done the exact same way. I'll come and edit the page for you and show you that it's simply the same web part on the page over and over again. So this web part is on the page 3 different times. The first one here is just showing a standard view of the document library. This is using that box display that we talked about, sorted by the most recently modified, and the item limit set to 1. So it shows us the properties of the last modified document. If we went and modified a document, when the page refreshed, it would show us that document because it's showing us what was most recently modified. And then we have documents by type here. That's just a document list grouped by their type category. So it's really using that same concept over and over again. All right, so that is what it's like. Again, if you guys have any questions, please let me know. The next thing I'm going to talk about is what do you do when you want to show the data across multiple lists. So I have one site. Inside of the site I have a projects list, I have a documents list, and I have a task list. And each task and each document are associated with a project. So if we come over here and look at that, if I come down here into site content, I have a list of projects. Here's my list of projects, and I have 10 of them. Okay, so I have my 10 projects right here. Okay, here's my 10 projects. And then I also have, if I come over here, I go to Site Contents, I have got a project documents list. And I've got 32 documents in here. So here are my documents. Notice that there's a column here called Project, and it lets me select a project it's associated with. So if I come over here to this and I say Details, and I say Edit, I can come over here, and from the drop-down I can pick from my 10 projects. So I can say what project is this associated with. So I'm going to go Project 6 and say Save. And now my document is associated with Project 6. This is done using a column that's called Lookup. So if I come over here into my list settings, and I'm going to go ahead and return to the classic SharePoint view. Okay, so I come back over here, I'm going to go to my library, I'm going to go to my library settings, and I want to show you that we have a column of type Lookup. So we have different columns here, some examples of other ones I've done, but if we go over here to Project, it's a Lookup column, and we're getting information from the projects list, and we're pulling over the title column from the projects list. So what this is saying is that we've got a list of projects, and I want to pull from all the ones that are titles in that list. I want to pull from the drop-down. So if I go to the projects list and I add project 11, it's going to become available in my drop-down. So there's a couple of things I want to show you about creating the lookup column. So when we're over here and we have our different columns, and we say create a new column, I'm going to call it project 12.1. We're going to come over here and say lookup. Okay. Once we say lookup, we're able to come down here, and there's a couple of things. Can we require that this has information? Do we want to enforce unique values? So enforcing unique values would mean that we're going to only let one item in the list match one of the other columns. So if we have 10 projects and I say enforce unique values, only one of the items in our list can be pointing back to project 1. Others would need to point to one of the other projects. Then we can also say what list we're getting it from. So in our case, we want to get it from projects, and the field we want to pull over is title. Okay, then there are other fields, like maybe we want to pull over some additional fields about it and show those. We could do that there. And then there's a really neat thing here about enforcing relational behavior. And so there's two different ways that this will do this. The first one is a restrict delete. That means if I have a document that is pointing to project 1, no one can go delete project 1. If they tried to delete project 1, it would say, you can't delete me, there's something looking up to me. The cascade delete is the opposite, and it says if you go delete project 1, delete all of the documents that are looking up to project 1 and all of the tasks that are looking up to project 1. So both of these have very good business case values, and when you'd want to use them, you just want to make sure that you do not mix and match them. You want to make sure that you use them appropriately so you don't get stuck either keeping yourself from deleting something or deleting all of your tasks and your documents. So I'm not going to select anything now. I'm going to just say OK. All right. Now we're going to come back over here to project documents, and we will see that if we go into the properties of this one, so I'm going to come over here and go into properties. We'll see here is my project 12.1, which I just set up, and you see again all of the different things that are here. Okay? And so I could set the items there. So that gets us set up. We did the same thing in my task list. So if we come over here to the task list that we've been in most of the day, project tasks. Okay. If I go into list and I go to list settings, you will also see that I have got a lookup column. Okay, so we have got the lookup column for project task is in here, task name. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong list. Project, here we go. Project is our lookup. So we have our project right there with what we're looking up to. So for every task, when we create a new task, we say what project we're associated with. For every document, we say what project we're associated with. Okay. So then what happens on our dashboard is we have one-page dashboard that lets us select from a project and lets us use web part lookups to show the associated items. Okay, so we have our different pieces here, and we're showing the different values based on what we are selecting. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this page here. All right, and I see that I've got my list. And so the trick to doing this is to still put down our web parts, get all of the data the way that we want it, and then when we're in Edit Web Part, we're able to go in and do a connection that basically says send rows of data from this web part to all of these other web parts. And when you click on it, and it's going to come and give me a pop-up here in just a second, I'm able to say what is my connection on. So I'm able to say where title is equal to the project. So if I come over here, I just want to make sure we get the right project. Okay, I can say finish, and then that's going to get our web parts going so that whenever you select one, it will show up in the other. Okay, so when we're working through this, now I kind of want to show you guys from scratch what that would look like. So I'm going to come over here and say a page. I'm going to say okay with this. Okay. All right, again, I'm going to come up here to my text layout, and I'm going to pick a layout that makes the most sense for what we're trying to do. Maybe I'll do the 2 columns here, or maybe even 3 columns. All right, now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to insert my web parts. So the first one that I want to insert is my projects list. And then the second one that I want to insert here is going to be my task list. And maybe the third one that I want to insert here is going to be my documents. So I'll come over here to project documents. Let's see, project documents. Okay, so now I have my web parts, and I just need to save and keep editing the page, and then I need to go into each one of these and pull out the views that make the most sense. So I can come and look over with my web part and see if I have a view that makes sense. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. If I don't, I can come over here and say edit the current view, which will allow me to do all of the things that we just talked about with views. It will allow me to do that for just the web part. So it doesn't save the view so I can use it later, but it allows me to set it up for just this web part. So I'm going to come over here to style, and I'll pick newsletter to make it look nice. Okay, now I'm going to come over here and just keep editing the page and doing the same thing. With my task, I definitely want to have a different view. I don't want to have the timeline there and make it a little clunky. So I'm going to hit edit here. And for this one, I'm going to just get rid of the timeline. And I probably want to go to the current view and just show the project so you guys can see how it's filtering. So let's see. So maybe I'll show that. We'll just say okay here. I'll edit the page again, and I'll make the timeline go away. Sometimes it does not like it if you're editing views and styles inside of the web part. It does not also like to change the other features, so we'll come over here and just resave that setting. And finally, project documents is pretty simple, so we'll just go ahead and leave that like it is. So now I've got my page here. You see I've got my different web parts. So the last thing I want to do is put the connection together. So I'll go in and I'll edit the page. And what I'm able to do is go into my web part, say edit the web part. And once that's done, I'm going to be able to go in and do a connection. So I want to send a row of data to project tasks. And it's going to come up and give me a pop-up and let me pick how I want to do it. And I want to get filter values from, and this is where I would say where my title is equal to project. And I would say finish. Okay. And then I would repeat and do the exact same thing, connection, send row of data to project documents. Get filter values from. And again, we would pick title and we would come over here and pick project. All right, give it just a second to save. And then we'll say save. And that's how you build out those dashboards where you're able to come in and depending on the one that you pick, it will show different values for you. And so you guys can see and kind of see where I'm going with this. Then you could just keep editing the page, adding in your own columns if you wanted to make it look visually different or adding in other pieces of data. There's a lot you can do with styles and views to get this to match something that really provides impact for your users. And so we are bumping right up against time. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. I hope that this has been really helpful for you. It's kind of a quick tutorial on how to get started building some things inside of SharePoint with no code, no syntax, no semicolons. And I'm thankful that you guys were able to attend with us today. If you want to attend future events like this or other events that we have that Planet does, feel free to check out our website for all of the future events, and I will stick around and answer any questions. So the question that I got from Bob is, how did you get the overdue date to display in red? That's actually a feature of SharePoint 2013 and higher, where it just automatically does it for a task list. So anytime you have a task list and the due date is late or past overdue, it will display in red for you. So I didn't have to make any changes for that. It's just something that's done. So it's a really great feature, actually. I'm really happy they added that in 2013. So great questions. If you have any others, I'll stick around and answer them. Otherwise, I hope this has been a helpful session for you guys.